there was a suit and there were remote control heads with like servos and that like operated the eyes and things, but oftentimes it was very loud and it was very distracting.
Please welcome Henry Thomas and Matthew Merritt. Well, first of all, gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Congratulations on everything. Let's start there. It's been a long ride for ET.
It has. Yeah. No, it's I'm always amazed that the film still finds new generations of fans, and it's being in the business this long, you realize how rare it is to have any kind of a hit that lasts longer than 6 months. And E.T.'s been around for 43 years now, which is crazy to me.
I'm just surprised Mac and me didn't catch more fire. I was really pining for that role.
Yeah. Mac and Me was a dark horse. It was... It was, there was also Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a little bit better.
You were in town many years ago for Niagara.
Yeah, we shot Niagara here and in a lot of upstate New York.
We're New Paltz, where my daughter goes to school there.
Is it New Paltz and Poughkeepsie? I lived in Poughkeepsie while we were...
Oh, did you really? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was great. That's one of my favorite films, but it's very hard to find.
Yeah. You spent a lot of time here when you were shot. I feel like a lot of the film wasn't shot here.
No, we only shot in Niagara at Niagara Falls itself for I think a day, 2 days. Yeah. But the production, we did. It was in the early or the mid '90s. And it was an independent film out of New York City, this company called the Shooting Gallery. And we had no money. So everything was kind of clandestine.
Right.
We brought this set up to the falls and kind of constructed it and shot the sequence all in a couple of hours.
Wow.
And I almost actually jumped into accident.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because they built it was an optical illusion. They built this 10-foot high section of the wall, and then they could angle the camera up to where they didn't see the actual wall, but it was placed about 5 or 10 feet in front of the actual wall, and I had to walk on the top of that thing and then jump down, and there were pads down there, but I'm a little scared of heights, and if you've ever been up in a higher place, you look down, your target where you're going to land always looks a lot smaller. And so there were a couple of guys there that saved my life and dragged me back onto the pad when I...
Wow.
Because I hit and bounced.
Wow.
Well.
Now, Matthew, going back to E.T., your entrance into the film is a little unique. If you can talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So a lot of people think that I was part of the cast, but I wasn't. I was part of the special effects crew. So someone in charge of that division at Universal Studios was looking for someone who'd be my height to fit in the costume. And they heard that UCLA Medical Center used to... I used to be a patient there, so they could figure out how I was going to walk around without legs, because I was born without legs. A lot of people don't know that. Let's get that out of the way. It wasn't a shark, wasn't a train. I'm not a member of the Choo Choo Club, which is what they call people who lose limbs.
Really?
Yeah, so I learned that recently. But anyway, getting off topic here. So they were like, okay, well, we got a short person who has I don't know whether they had dwarfism or something else, but they had kind of brittle bones, so they wouldn't do it. So they had someone without legs, who could walk on their hands. Would you be interested in them? And they said, yeah. So I went down and I auditioned at Carlo Rambaldi's studio. Carlo Rambaldi is the guy who designed E.T. And Spielberg was there and Carlo was there. And as soon as I showed him my walk, where I could walk on my hands, lift up my torso and walk on my hands, they knew that was the walk. So that's how I got hired.
How old are you at that point?
11.
So, I mean, the idea of being in a movie at that point was probably farthest from your...
It was. It was a little hard to process. I wasn't a movie buff back then like my dad was, so I didn't really understand exactly what it was all about. I didn't know all Spielberg's movies. I didn't know how big it was. Basically. Right. But yeah, I mean, it was my first job, so you can't ask for anything better.
Right. I mean, your audition tape has made the rounds. And justifiably so. I mean, it was an amazing audition for someone your age. But how much of that process do you remember?
Oh, well, I mean, I remember all of it. I was nine and a half. I turned 10 while we were filming E.T. But I had just started working professionally the year before that. I got the first part in a film that the first professional acting job I got was playing Sissy Spacek's oldest son in a movie called Raggedy Man. And that was a Universal film. And the editor of that was across the hall from Spielberg while he was helping with the edit of Poltergeist. And they overheard that, through the rumor mill or whatever, that Spielberg was doing a new movie and there were going to be kids in it and he was looking for a boy. And so the director and the editor of Raggedy Man, two gentlemen named Jack Fisk and Ed Warshika, they put together a clip of a couple of scenes from Raggedy Man, and they showed it to Steven. And then, through that process, I got the audition for E.T.
Were you, do you know how many people were up for it as well?
They had cast someone else first.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they had another guy kind of in place. And Robert McNaughton, who's usually here with us for panels, he was cast early on in the process, and he had like met with these kids, and they had done some Dungeons and Dragons kind of, group think tank situations to kind of see what they call chemistry reads, where they kind of get all of the people that they think they want in the movie together, and they see how they all interact,
and they all had to know how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah. Okay. But that was, according to Robert, that was the process. Like, that's what they were doing. They were getting these kids together playing Dungeons and Dragons and kind of going, oh yeah, that one's fun. This is a good guy. We're going to put them in. And apparently the guy that they had as Elliott before me, he didn't gel in the D&D think tank setting. So that was my end. And then you can watch the audition on YouTube. That's actually the second part of the audition. That's the last half of the audition, because the first part of the audition was me reading this fake scene from the movie that wasn't in the movie, which they often do. And it was horrible. And I remember thinking, man, I blew it. Like, I really blew it. And so when you watch the audition, like the first frame, if you look at my face, I'm like this. And the reason is because I thought that I had already like blown my opportunity.
Wow. That's gotta be a lot to put on the shoulder. I mean, the audition process for any actor is difficult, but as a child, I imagine it's very hard.
Well, I mean, that was my third audition.
Right.
Not a bad track record.
I got the first two. Right. So I was like, I guess I'm doing it all right. But I didn't, at that age, technically, I didn't know anything about acting. I just...
Were you intimidated by Spielberg? Were you familiar with any of his movies?
I was excited. I it's funny because I didn't you know, like you said, like you didn't really know enough about the movie world. Or like, I wasn't intimidated by anybody. Like because I grew up on a farm in Texas, like in the middle of nowhere. And I was pretty self-sufficient at like 4 years old because I had jobs to do. And, you know, it felt like movies felt like some kind of summer vacation to me. It felt like, wow, you know, like I won a contest and now I'm able to do this for a couple of weeks and then I'll go back to my normal life.
Yeah, I was just glad that I remember being really invested in getting the role. I was just glad that I had a couple days off from school to go to whatever this is, and they're telling me it's important and it sounds fun. As soon as I got into Carlo Rambaldi's studio, he designed the head for Alien, and I was a big fan of Alien, and I saw that the head for Alien at the top of the stairs. And so I remember, okay, this is really cool.
That's cool.
So yeah, so when I got it, it was a bonus.
What about your friends? I mean, your friends, it had to be kind of cool to, you know, you're a cool guy in school for a little while.
I didn't have a lot of close friends. My best friend knew that I was filming a movie, but he wasn't a movie buff, so he didn't really understand what it was. What's interesting, though, is E.T. came along at a great time in my life because I was bullied in school, and it was like at peak bullying time. So that's why I was glad I got those couple days off. Right. And then when I got it, and then I befriended Henry and Robert, so we became like best buds. So I had like a confidence and a strength and an energy that I didn't have before. So I went back to school. Bullying completely stopped. It was just completely intangible. They just saw it.
That's great.
It didn't mess with me. Right. Without knowing anything about ET or anything. So that was really cool.
What was your, how many days were you on set?
I think it was about 2 weeks in total.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're
funny because it seemed like,
it seems long.
Think about it, it seemed like we shot that movie for 6 months.
Yeah.
We were only there for like, I think 7 weeks total.
Yours was 7 weeks?
Yeah, it was like 7.5, 8 weeks maybe.
And did they film it in sequence too?
No, everybody says
it's too hard.
Right. I don't know. I think Steven said that in an interview once, and it was like,
oh yeah, the misinformation that comes out of ET is just crazy. I remember Dee Wallace used to say, "You got to see Matt. He walks upside down on his hands. That's how he did it in the costume." And it's like for the longest time she was saying, "Yeah." Some people were like, "Do a handstand." It's like it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, Matt's big sequence in the film was really like the whole section where E.T. was drunk and Elliott was in school releasing the frogs. Like Matt did all of that stuff, and he was responsible for the way they kind of made E.T. move, because of his walk. It kind of informed the character, you know. So, like that whole section with E.T. in the blue plaid bathrobe, that was 100% Matt.
Yeah, that was all the kitchen scenes were mine. And then there was this another gal too. Her name was Caprice Roth, and she was a mime. And so you see the E.T.'s hand movements were very, very realistic looking. It was because her hands were in the E.T. gloves. And so when they did close-ups and they wanted to articulate his hands to pick up Reese's Pieces or whatever, or to get the beer can out of the refrigerator, that was her.
Yeah, and she would often have to lie down below frame, you know, below the animatronic thing or the suit, and kind of
while beer's spilling in her face,
hands up like this. Yeah.
Hey, you were pretty fresh to acting at that point. Was there any? You were working with puppets essentially, and and worked with Matthew in the costume. Was that something you were able to handle really well, or was it hard for you to?
It was very, very difficult, but Caprice actually was a very important part of that because I could always look down and see a pair of human eyes there.
Oh, sure.
And she was also like she was acting, like, so her face, was every, she was acting out the emotion of E.T. during the scene. So it was very important. And I found that if I could connect with her, then I could kind of, bleed that into the puppet thing, because there was a suit and there were remote control heads with like servos and that like operated the eyes and things, but oftentimes it was very loud and it was very distracting, because you would you'd hear the latex sticking and feeling, and when you're trying to like make things real and you're 10 years old, it's a little difficult sometimes.
But did you have any awareness of that you were carrying an entire film?
No, I didn't. I wasn't thinking anything like that. At the time, it was just, it was, wow, I'm doing this movie with Steven Spielberg, who directed Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not as cool as Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well, you did get to act with Harrison for a cutscene.
Yeah, I did, but I was like, well, I don't get to shoot anybody.
Yeah. It was like a Raiders light. Raiders really, really light, but without the hat.
So I was, I didn't really understand the I guess not the opportunity, but I guess the magnitude of what it meant to be the lead in the Spielberg movie,
right?
Because I wasn't thinking like that.
Yeah, they didn't come to you and say, "Oh, how do you feel about carrying this?" They tried to give the illusion that the responsibility was everybody else.
Yeah, but it was also like, it was, you'd get on set and Spielberg would be really always excited about some kind of technical aspect of it. Like that would be the excitement, oh, wait till you guys see the eyes, because I'm going to, we've worked on the eyes a lot, and it's going to be amazing. And, and then you feel like, it doesn't matter what I do. It's all about special effects or whatever.
Yeah. Matthew, you obviously had experience walking your hands at it, but you talk about working in the costume, like how difficult that was, or was it?
Sure, no, it was difficult because it was heavy. The latex recipe was different back then. So latex, it shrank. It doesn't now.
Right.
So when it shrinks, the pores actually get smaller too. So it gets stiffer.
Less.
Yeah. So every time squeezing me into the costume was more and more difficult. So,
did it lose its shine for you? Like after the first couple of days, like, oh, this is terrible.
No, not at all. Because it wasn't anything like that. Because it was like 10 to 15 minutes of shooting at a time. And I was a trooper. It's like, tell me to do anything. I'll do it any way you want, Mr. Spielberg. I was like, it was that. I wish I would asserted more dominance on that set. I wish I would have played more pranks on Spielberg, like Jackass style prank. Yeah. Like I wish I would have just gone up to him when he's concentrating on a shot. He's really just, in the zone, and just punched him in the dick. And just see how it went. What are they going to do? Fire me?
You had a unique skill set that they upped your plate.
And I wish you'd done that too, because you had more cred on this. They really weren't going to fire you.
I know.
they had that other guy in the wings, but
I was too stupid to realize my power.
So was I.
Does anyone have any questions?
Youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah. Did you guys enjoy doing the Christmas reunion commercial type thing?
Oh, yeah, that was in 2019 for Xfinity, And it was the only thing that it was the only time that Spielberg has actually signed off on any attempts at a commercial or any kind of ET revamp of any sort. So, I was always willing to sell out, but just nobody was buying. And I was always willing to sell out, but I wasn't going to sell out unless Spielberg said it was okay.
Okay.
Because I did want to work again.
Well, the actress that played your wife, was she the one you kissed in the first movie?
No. There was no one involved except for me that had been involved in the original.
Was that kissing scene tough for you at the age of 10?
Well, with Erika Liniak?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was nervous to do that. Not so much like actually kissing the girl. That wasn't the thing that made me nervous. It was kissing the girl in front of all of the people and all the other kids and the adults. I was like, oh God, I don't want to do that. It's going to be so embarrassing. And then to make it worse, Stephen wanted me to reenact the physical action of John Wayne in The Quiet Man with Maureen O'Hara when she's running out of the house and John Wayne grabs her by the wrist and spins her around and, kisses her. So, at 9 years old or 10 years old, I'm watching this scene from The Quiet Man. I've got this tape of The Quiet Man on a loop, just that scene, and I'm watching and I'm practicing, and we get to set, and the girl he's cast, Erika Liniak, is beautiful, but she's 12 and a half years old, and I'm barely 10. And she's about 1.5 feet taller than me. And I was like, oh, God, it's getting worse. And then, and so he was like, oh, I got it. You can stand on this kid's back. Kiss her. So that's how that came about.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I loved you as Dr. Midnight.
Oh, thank you.
What do you do when you see kids dressing up as you for Halloween? Because this year I dressed up as you with a mini ET in a basket.
You did. I say, cool costume. No, it's a good costume. But the one I don't see very much, which I think is cooler, is Elliott as a goblin for Halloween costume with the gray hoodie and the cape. So maybe next year for Halloween you could try that one and really amaze your friends.
Thanks, bud.
Oh, hi, Mr. Edwards. I know I talked to you upstairs. I didn't see all your movies. I was like Dr. Midnight, which I obviously have to see. E.T. I loved. Now, would you ever do something like that ever again, or either go behind the scenes and write a project ever?
Would I be a part of another?
Yeah, like E.T. Would you do another project like that, or would you ever go behind the scenes and write a project?
I write some, but I don't. I don't really think like that. If something were to come to me and it was a good story and it had something to do with aliens, I would. You would be in Aliens? I would be in it if it were something that I thought was a good script.
Oh.
If I read a script and I say, oh, this is interesting, then usually that's all it takes.
They have another one coming out in August too called Romulus, so who knows?
Oh, yes.
All right, cool.
He learned now Mac and me.
But not Flight of the Navigator.
But not Flight.
No, they're recasting it.
For both of you, what was your favorite scene that you did in the movie? Well, I mean, it would have to be the drunk scene because I got immediate gratification from that. Everybody on the crew laughed when I splat. And that was for the rehearsal. And then we filmed a couple times after that and got just so much laughs. So I knew it was going to be a hit in theaters. So.
My favorite scene was in the first act when all of the kids are playing D&D and Elliott's trying to get in the game and they send him out to get the pizza. I love that.
Yeah, that's very authentic.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, you looked like you really wanted to play. You like desperate.
Well, it was kind of life imitating art because all of those guys were about 5 years older than me, and I desperately wanted to hang out with them. But Robert McNaughton was the only guy that would ever give me any time. Like, C. Thomas Howell was always like, "Get out of here, kid."
Yeah. We didn't get along with C. Thomas Howell.
We do now.
We do now. You know, we're best friends now.
We do now, but
we were a different age group, different.
And Tommy got the part in The Outsiders, and then suddenly he was like, "Yeah, I'm going places." It was like it went from second gear to sixth gear.
Totally.
Hi, Henry. So was there any discussion about the when you had to do the penis breath line? Was that was it just in the script, or did you have to riff on that?
So Melissa Matheson, who wrote the screenplay, had gone to the grocery store and overheard two brothers arguing in the aisle, and one of them, used that line on the other one, and she came in with a rewrite, and Stephen loved it, and my mom was upset that I had to say that. My mom gave him a little pushback, but obviously it made it in the film.
Thanks.
How long?
Oh yeah.
Whoops, sorry.
Robert actually got called that all throughout high school because of it. So he's still mad about that.
Overjoyed.
How long did they put the costume on?
They put the costume on me for about half hour at a time, and then they take the head off between scenes, and then they cool me down with cool air, and put it back on when we had to film.
So hopefully I didn't miss this. We were trying to find parking and walked in a few minutes late. Sorry. But nobody asked about Drew Barrymore. How was it working with her? Are you in touch with her at all? So, well,
Drew was 6 at the time. Drew couldn't read. So for Drew to learn her lines, we all had to rehearse it and work with her. But she was still at that age where, if you've been around children at all, between like 4 and 7, the kind of veil of reality is kind of it's a little obscure, so she would kind of go in and out of this sort of, I know what I'm doing, I'm not stupid, into, oh, look, E.T.'s cold over there, we should go put a scarf around his neck. She kind of wasn't, she wasn't quite sure if he was real or not, so they would always, like, Stephen would always have the guys on the special effects crew, when Drew was on set, he would always have them operate E.T. a little bit so that he was always moving and breathing a little bit so that, we kind of keep that illusion up for her. But she was really funny. She was a cult of personality at 6.
you captured her with your nonverbals.
Yeah. And she was desperate for girlfriends on the set, but it was only us. So she'd rope me into her dressing room and to play Barbies. And they had these Barbies where you could look a little marker and you could color the hair different colors, like blue and pink and stuff. So that's my memory.
So was the more towards the end of the movie where E.T. is actively dying in that big tube, was that just as scary for you as it was for me growing up?
Well, I mean, it's funny because when you make a film and you're there, it's generally like watching paint dry. It's not a very exciting process, so you're actively trying to create that excitement and that sense of, wonder or sense of life, right? But things don't really get frightening for the same reasons. It's like, for me, I was sitting there thinking, God, it's cold in here in these long john bottoms most of the time.
Did you ever see the dailies for the film?
No, I
They didn't
never.
let you?
No, they didn't let. I don't think I was invited, but
I wasn't either. I was just
no.
okay. So I feel better that I wasn't.
No, Stephen was. The whole project was kept under wraps, and it was very secretive, and so, we weren't allowed to talk about it. We had to have special security badges to get on and off set, and into the studio, and we weren't allowed to keep scripts. They were to be returned. So, everything was kind of compartmentalized.
And then one more question. Everyone's asking, what was your favorite part of the movie? What was your least favorite part of the filming of the movie?
I think it was probably like the scientist invasion of the home. That was probably my least favorite, because everything else had been all about the family, or like interaction with ET, and then suddenly we had all of these like UCLA doctors who were hired as extras, like shouting out, it's like, felt like an episode of ER or something, for a second. But it all worked, right? It all played into the story.
Thank you. Last two questions. So, Matthew, Friday, we talked about you being a drummer and such. Have you ever been in any bands or anything, or just kind of?
No, I just record on my own. But my brother was a drummer early on, so I used to play his drum kit a lot. And then it wasn't until like 1995 when I was able to figure out a way to sample a kick drum and then put an electronic drum on my floor tom, and then use my snare hand to play the kick as well. So I've been playing regularly since then, but I just record on my own. I don't do any gigs or anything like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, my question's for Henry, and I hope someone didn't ask this or mention this already, but I watched a video about when you were trying out for the role and how you blew Steven Spielberg out of the water with your opening monologue, or your how much training did you receive before that? Because, I mean, you're obviously a child actor, and that seemed pretty advanced for someone maybe even at 20 and 30 years old, let alone under 10.
Well, I touched on it earlier, but, I had a great first experience with a film and with acting, and I had the opportunity to work with some really great actors my first time out of the gate. I worked with Sissy Spacek, Sam Shepard, and Eric Roberts on my first film, and everything that I knew about acting, I knew from those guys and my experience that had just happened the year before. And to be fair, I think Spielberg had already made his mind up that he was going to hire me before I even came in to read. And I think the read was just a litmus test just to make sure he wasn't wrong, But you get in a room and people want you to bring something, and you can either bring it or you can't. And, I've been in the position where I've lost the audition many times, but this one I won. So, yeah.
And it's not ET related, but the Fall of the House of Usher was great. I hope you do more things.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mike Flanagan's been pretty important to your career as of late.
Yeah, I mean, he's kept me employed a lot in the last few years, which is great. But you know, it's interesting because you know, when Mike had his deal with Netflix, you know, I worked on almost every project that he did there. And now he's moving to Amazon and he's trying to branch out. I think he's trying to branch out of horror and do some more like mainstream dramatic stuff, which I think is great because I think Mike's he's a really dynamic guy and he's a really good director and he's got a good sense of story. I'd like to see him do some other stuff. He'll always come back to horror because he's a horror fan himself, but I'm excited to see his film Life of Chuck, which is coming out, I think this year, which is a Stephen King story, but it's one of Stephen King's less horror influenced stories.
Well, gentlemen, can't thank you enough. Please give it up for Henry.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming out.
To do it. Thanks, guys.
Hey, this is Wilson Cruz from Star Trek Discovery, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like and share, plus have fun and follow your fandom. Doctor's orders.